don't think it is.
Hello?
Are we? Nope.
get started now. Welcome to the Salt Lake City Planning Commission. Today's date is December 13th, 2023. The Planning Commission consists of residents from each Salt Lake City district that are appointed in a manner providing balanced geographic, professional, neighborhood, and community interest representation. The Planning Commission reviews and acts on any changes to the city's general plans, small area plans, special studies, zoning ordinances, and zoning district maps. The Commission also reviews and acts on planned unit developments, conditional uses, and certain subdivisions. Our goal is to provide a welcoming and safe environment for everyone. We ask that those in attendance adhere to a few ground rules. 1, silence or turn off your cell phones. 2, respect the person speaking and do not interrupt or do other things that could intimidate or deter others from exercising their right to be heard. Clapping, cheering, jeering, shouting, or other actions used to discourage people who have different opinions from participating will not be tolerated. People who attempt to diminish someone else's input may be removed from the room. 3, if you wish to speak, come to the microphone once the public hearing has been opened and state your name. Members of the public will have 2 minutes to comment. Your time cannot be combined with someone else's time. Everyone will get the same amount of time to speak so that we can ensure everyone is treated equally. If you are representative of an officially registered, recognized organization and the item you wish to speak on is within the boundaries of your organization, you will be given 5 minutes. If it is outside of your boundaries, you will be given 2 minutes. 4, if you have a handout that you want the commission to see, you need to leave copies because they become part of the legal record. 5, when commenting, speak clearly, keep your comments on topic, and brief. 6, questions asked during a public hearing will not be answered during the public hearing. Rather, the commission may ask the applicant or staff to answer questions after the public hearing is closed or ask city staff to follow up with you at a later time. We will go ahead and get started here. First off, we have the report of the chair. The chair has nothing to report, so we will move on to the report of the director.
Thank you. Just to update you on some of the actions of recently at City Council. They've approved a number of zoning map amendments, pretty much every zoning map amendment that I think came before the commission between probably July and October. At this point has probably been approved by the City Council. They also approved a couple of significant text amendments. One, the affordable housing incentives were adopted on December 5th. Those have an effective date of April 30th. So that gives us a few months to build all of the administrative steps and documents and everything else we need. And then they also adopted the update to the subdivision code. As you may remember, those state law changed last year that requires us to make changes and have those adopted by January 31st. So I think we might be the first city that actually did that. So that's good. And I think that's all I have. Oh, they also had a briefing on the landscape ordinances. So the change to that was yesterday. They've had 2 in the last 2 meetings. So they wrapped those up yesterday and they gave us some direction on some changes that they'd like to see. So we'll be working on those, and hopefully before planting season, that'll be adopted and in place.
Thank you. We'll now have our open forum if anyone has something that they want to discuss as a commission. We've talked about having a discussion in the future about the duties and role of the Planning Commission. I believe that's something that we're going to put on a future agenda. So we will push that to that meeting. If there's no one wanting to take advantage of the open forum, we'll go ahead and move to the consent agenda. We did not receive a copy of our minutes until right before the meeting, so we're going to push the approval of the meeting minutes to the next meeting. We have one item on the consent agenda, which is conditional use, the tasting room bar establishment at approximately 357 West, 200 South. Case number PLN PCM 2023-00729. I am looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Chair, motion to approve the consent agenda.
And I'll second.
We actually have to hold a public hearing on that because it's an
Okay.
approval item.
We need to update our consent agenda procedure that's in here. So should we go ahead and open the public hearing on that, and then we will do a motion to approve it. So we will go ahead and open the public hearing on the conditional use item. If there's anyone from the public who wishes to speak on conditional use, the tasting room bar establishment at approximately 357 West, 200 South, case number PLN PCM 2023-00729. If you'd like to speak on that, go ahead and step up to the microphone. Seeing no one, and I'm going to assume that we haven't received any emails on it either. We will go ahead and close the public hearing on that item and come back to the commission for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Chair, motion to approve the consent agenda.
And I will second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Santos Rivera and a second from Commissioner Scheer. We will go ahead and vote on the motion. Commissioner Santos Rivera,
Yes.
Commissioner Scheer,
Yes.
Commissioner Berry,
Yes.
Commissioner Tuttle,
Yes.
Commissioner Gale,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
and Commissioner Krasik.
Krasik, yeah.
Krasik, thank you. Yes, okay. And the chair will also vote yes. That motion passes unanimously. The motion to approve the consent agenda. And we will go ahead and move to our first item on the regular agenda, which is Brooklyn Avenue Vacations and Subdivision Amendment. Case numbers PLN PCM 2022-00068, PLN PCM 2022-00349, and PLN SUB 2023-00493. And our planner is Aaron Barlow. And we'll wait just a moment while we get the projector hooked up here.
We're getting there. Just a minute. Is that visible? Oh, we'll give it just a minute to turn on the TVs. Well, there we go. We have visuals on one monitor in the room here, so I'll start. So, like Chairman Christensen said, this is a request to vacate a number of spaces, a number of public right-of-ways around Brooklyn Avenue. The petition numbers are PLM PCM 2022-00068, 00349, Plan Sub 2023-00493. There are three separate requests that are part of this petition. The first is a street vacation, which is a request to vacate Brooklyn Avenue, the area in yellow on the map here. The second is a request to vacate the alley that bisects 1007 South 500 West. It is the area in red on this map. And the third request is a subdivision amendment, which is required when vacating public right-of-way that has been dedicated by a subdivision. And staff is recommending a positive recommendation with conditions. So here's some photos just to get an idea of what's going on the site. First, here is Brooklyn Avenue from the east end, from the viaduct, right over here. This is the property 1007 South 500 West. This building here has been around since the construction of I-15. Here is the corner of 5th West and Brooklyn Avenue. Here is 500 West facing north. And this is the building at 1005 South 500 West, the Kesemakis Produce Building. So like I was saying, Brooklyn Avenue needs to be vacated through a subdivision amendment because it has been dedicated by two separate subdivisions. And this is sort of a unique situation here. I call it an Oreo cookie. The north section of Brooklyn Avenue was dedicated by the Brooklyn subdivision, that's in yellow. And then the south half was dedicated by the Dolan subdivision, that's red. But the area in between, the cream filling of the cookie, was actually dedicated many, many years before with the original 5-acre big field survey for the south half of the city. So there are two subdivisions and space in between. As staff reviewed this request and routed it to other departments in the city, those other departments made some requests for some conditions of approval. The first was with Public Utilities. They requested a utility easement along the edge of the applicant's properties, and I'll show you where that is on a map on the next page. Engineering and Transportation requested public improvements along 500 West and Fayette Avenue according to street typology 8, and I'll show you what that looks like in just a minute. And that would happen when the Brooklyn Avenue right-of-way is developed beyond what it is now. Then finally, Fire and the Transportation Division requested that a turnaround that meets fire code is placed somewhere between public and private property when the Brooklyn Avenue right-of-way is developed in the same way with the engineering request. So here is the map of where Public Utilities would like that utility easement to be located. All the area in pink that looks sort of like a check mark, that would need to be established as a public utility easement before the Brooklyn Avenue right-of-way is deeded over to the applicant. And then here we have the two illustrations. First is the fire code turnarounds. These are turnarounds that are allowed by fire code today. Whenever that site is developed, if this is approved, that new turnaround would need to meet the fire code that exists at that time, so it may or may not look like this. And then street typology 8, just a few months ago, has it been a year ago now, the Transportation Division put together these street typologies, and this is the design in which the right-of-way, or if we look at the map here, the area along 500 West and Fayette Avenue, right here, along the edge of the subject area, will need to be developed according to those standards, but just the the frontage of those properties that are part of the subdivision. Staff reviewed this with compliance according to the city master plans and policies. A few of the plans that were reviewed were the downtown master plan, Plan Salt Lake, and the transportation master plan. The downtown plan lists many connectivity opportunities for mid-block walkways and lots of other things, but this part of the neighborhood was notably absent from those plans, and also mentioned a lot of areas where deteriorating infrastructure needed to be improved, and Brooklyn Avenue was left out of that analysis altogether. Plan Salt Lake also really pushes for those mid-block walkway opportunities, but this site, those opportunities are not really available because of its proximity to I-15 and the West Temple Viaduct. And the Transportation Master Plan, the most recent that's currently being processed by, I think you reviewed that just a few weeks ago with the Transportation Division. Staff reviewed this according to those standards because it will help that conversation when the City Council reviews this. But one of the areas that were really important in that plan was what's the community benefit to vacating a public right-of-way? And there are a few things that come with this vacation. First is the public utilities easement for that stormwater, and then the public right-of-way improvements at the time of development of the site. So this proposed vacation does not conflict with city policies. One issue that needs to be corrected before the final plat is recorded with the city is that the lot frontage for the property to the south needs to be widened just a little bit. You can see here the 60 feet is the minimum lot width in the zoning district where this property is located. And right now the proposed lot width is 59 and some change. So that will need to be adjusted at that time. So the standards review that we've looked over when reviewing this and that are in the staff report, street vacations don't really have a specific adopted policy, but we have reviewed them according to the City Council's policy for street closures. And at that time, street closures meant both vacations and closures, but state statute has changed since then. Alley vacations, we have policy considerations for that this needs to be met, and the consideration this meets is the lack of use. And then, as well as the considerations that are in the staff report. And then subdivision amendments have to meet preliminary plat standards of approval, and all analysis can be found in the staff report. So staff is recommending approval with the conditions listed in the report because it generally meets the applicable standards. When those conditions are met, no objections come from other city divisions and no conflict with adopted plans or policies. And the applicant is here to answer any questions you might have. They do not have a formal presentation.
Let's go ahead and have the applicant come and take a seat. State your name for the record and go ahead and give any presentation that you've got.
I'm Jody Jones. I am partners with Jonah Hornsby, who is listed in the presentation that Aaron put together today. I don't have a presentation. We've been working on this since 2021. Aaron put together a fabulous report. I think he explains it really well. We're just trying to kind of complete what's been in process for, I think, 20 years. When we bought that parcel where the alley is through it, he thought that had been all taken care of, and it hadn't. It doesn't go anywhere. It's fenced off, and the street really has just become a problem. So Aaron did a great job.
Thanks. Any questions from the commission?
What's the zoning in this area?
General commercial? CG?
Yes, CG, general commercial.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no other questions, let's go ahead and open the public hearing. We've received one card from Douglas Smith. If you want to go ahead and step up to the microphone, state your name for the record, and you'll have 2 minutes.
I'm Douglas Smith. I've lived in that closest house there for 10 years. I live in Bountiful now. I stage cranes there. I move them around town. So I can see some of the cranes that I put here last week. The lowboy trailer that comes here to bring those cranes there is 117 feet long. I use that street to get turned around into my property that's on the 5th West angle there. Closing that street off to me takes away the use of that property for me. I've staged steel on flatbed trailers for the construction of the American Stores building, which is now Wells Fargo Towers, and other buildings downtown, including the Crossroads Mall that is now dead and gone. That's how you tell you're getting old, is the things that you put up have been torn down. So I hauled all that iron there and we staged it in that property. We use that street. This really affects me by taking away the use of the ability to turn trucks around. This city is choking off streets and squandering our pioneer heritage of the wide streets. We're filling them up with parkways and trees and concrete channels like the Autopia at Disneyland for cars to move around with, but heavy equipment, the bigger and bigger machines that we have to tear down this city and rebuild it, are having a harder and harder time to get around. Last week, I took a crane out of the 3rd South, that apartment building that's going in just up the street from Heber Wells. And it was nice to have wide streets on 2nd East, but now 3rd South was so choked off, I had to run over concrete with that lowboy, and I brought a small one downtown to get that. And I would like the city planners to keep that in mind. Roundabouts in Europe are done with paint stripes. Here we build them out of concrete channels that the Prius can navigate easily, but an 11-axle lowboy bringing a 120-ton machine in can't.
That's 2 minutes.
That's all I got, huh?
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to give public comment? Have we received any emails?
Just the one that I included in the Dropbox before the meeting.
We'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to the Planning Commission.
Real quick, Mike, may I?
Let me ask you the question, first. So the gentleman was talking about his own property. Is that he's moving in and out from, or something that's so? What is the way of addressing what's going to happen to the street once it's vacated? Let's put it that way.
For the time being, nothing would happen with it. I mean, we're currently, unfortunately, when you have a dead-end street like this, you get trailers and different unsheltered people that have. Last winter, there was a big camp at the end of the street, so we've been kind of battling that. Ultimately, we would like to develop this area, but that wouldn't happen immediately. Obviously, until then, he'd be able to use the street to turn around, and I don't know what kind of time frame that is. A 5-year plan, something beyond that. But
so, are you the owner of the property on both sides of the street? Both sides of Brooklyn Avenue?
No, we're on the kind of the corner.
Okay,
the middle,
the lower half, and
part,
so the
right?
owner of 1005 is not involved in this citation at all?
We're doing all the work for them, yes.
And they've approved
they're-
it? They've
They're
signed off
involved.
on it?
They just aren't doing any
That's
of the
fine.
work.
Just,
Yeah.
just checking.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, okay. But in the event, normally half of it will go to the north and half
Exactly.
it will go to the south.
That's right.
Property owners will be sold, right?
That's right.
Want to make sure everybody understands that it's actually sold.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's all.
Will this be immediately closed? Is this the plan to do right now?
No, according to the applicant, it will remain
Open.
usable until the time that site is developed. And one of the staff's recommendations is that as soon as this vacated right-of-way is developed in any way through a building permit or some other development means, that would trigger a requirement to put in a turnaround that would meet fire code. And the fire trucks here at the city are very large, and they actually require more than what fire code requires. So large vehicles will still be able to turn around according to that condition.
Just trying to clarify that fire access will come off of 500 West, right? So you'll have some kind of a hammer or something. Well, something there. Okay, thank you.
Looking at the motion sheet, this is 3 separate applications technically, so it will require 3 separate motions.
All right, Chair, I'm ready for a motion. Based on the information presented in discussion, I move the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to City Council to adopt this revocation petition with the condition listed in the staff report. This is for PLM PCM 2022-00349.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion from Commissioner Santos Rivera and a second from Commissioner Tuttle. Any discussion to the motion?
Chair, can I include the other motions into this one, or should we skip?
No.
All right, sounds good. No discussion.
We'll go ahead and take a vote. Commissioner Kratzik,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott, Commissioner Gale,
Yes.
Commissioner Tuttle,
Yes.
Commissioner Barry,
Yes.
Commissioner Shear,
Yes.
Commissioner Santos Rivera,
Yes.
and the chair will also vote yes. That motion passes unanimously.
Chair, I'm ready for another motion. Based on the information presented in the discussion, I move the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to City Council to adopt this alley vacation petition with the conditions listed in the staff report. This is in reference to PLN PCM 2022-00068.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Santos Rivera and a second from Commissioner Kratzik. Any discussion to the motion? We'll take a vote then. Commissioner Shear,
Yes.
Commissioner Tuttle,
Yes.
Commissioner Kratzik,
Yes.
Commissioner Gale,
Yes.
Commissioner Barry,
Yes.
Commissioner Santos Rivera,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
and the chair also votes yes. That also passes unanimously.
Based on the information, I'm ready for another motion, Chair. Based on the information presented in discussion, I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to City Council to adopt this preliminary plat for amending this Brooklyn and Dolan subdivisions and vacating Brooklyn Avenue with the conditions listed in the staff report, and this is in reference to PLN SUB 2023-00493.
We have a motion from Commissioner Santos Rivera and a second from Commissioner Kratzik. Any discussion to the motion? We'll go ahead and take a vote. Commissioner Tuttle,
Yes.
Commissioner Shear,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Kratzik,
Yes.
Commissioner Gale,
Yes.
Commissioner Barry,
Yes.
Commissioner Santos Rivera,
Yes.
and the chair also votes yes. That also passes unanimously, and all 3 will get forwarded on to the City Council for further action. We'll go ahead and move on to the next item. Edison Street design review at approximately 250 South, 200 East. Case number PLN PCM 2023-00707. And our planner is Amanda Roman.
This is a design review at 220 South and 250 South, 200 East. The applicant is Mitch Vance with J. Fisher Properties, and he is representing the property owner. The subject properties are located in the D1 Central Business District within the Central Business District area of the downtown plan. The site consists of two parcels that are approximately 1.5 acres or 63,000 square feet. The property has two frontages. It has approximately 340 feet along 200 East and 84 feet along Edison Street. The property is right in the middle of 200 and 300 South, 200 East, and State Street. And Edison is a mid-block street. The 200 East right-of-way is being redesigned into the Green Loop. Currently, the city is working with a design consultant, and the designs have gone public, so that will be a nice addition to the project. The development is 7 stories. There's a 2-story brick base with parking that is wrapped with retail and amenity space, and 5 levels of residential units above. There's 201 housing units being proposed, from studios to 2 bedrooms, a 20-foot wide mid-block walkway. I would typically go into the mid-block design, but I've seen the applicant's presentation. I have a lot of details on it, so I'll let them speak to that. The walkway is called out on the downtown plans map as a requirement, and they have exceeded the minimum width, which was 15 feet, with a 6-foot wide unobstructed path. They're proposing 9,500 square feet of retail and amenity space. This includes, at this moment, some small restaurants along the mid-block walkway, a larger restaurant that has frontage on 200 East, as well as a coffee shop and leasing area. And the project has 157 parking stalls. The applicant is requesting a variety of modifications to Chapter 21A37, which are the design standards, and as well as a modification to the D1's minimum height allowance. So in 21A30, the minimum height in the downtown D1 zone is 100 feet, and the applicant is requesting a minimum height of 78 feet 6 inches. Building height is defined as the vertical distance from the average elevation of the finished lot grade at each face of the building. So there's 2, I'll go into the building height more, but so we're measuring it from the elevation with the lowest average, which is the side yard on the southern face of the building. They're also requesting to double the allowable street-facing facade building length from 150 feet to 307 feet along 200 East. They're requesting a decrease in the percentages of glass on both the lower and upper levels, and also they're proposing some modification to the upper floors stepbacks that are required for buildings between 78 and 104 feet within the D1 zone. Staff is recommending approval of the petition with conditions. So the first request is to reduce the minimum building height in the downtown central business district from 100 feet to 78 feet 6 inches. So this is a new code requirement that was adopted in mid-2023, as some of you know. Previously, the old code had a maximum building height for mid-block buildings in the D1 of 100 feet, and then corner buildings had a maximum height of 375 feet. Applicants could go through a design review, and there was no height limit if approved through the design review process. With the adoption of the Downtown Building Heights and Street Activation Ordinance this year, The updated code eliminated the distinction between mid-block and corner block buildings and created a minimum of 100 feet for all buildings in the D1 zone. So this is new, and this is the first project to request Planning Commission approval for reduced building height. And I just wanted to touch on with that code amendment, the purpose of it was really to support future growth. The population is, steadily increasing. It's going to double by 2025. It was also to align zoning code with building code and improve livability with more active ground floor uses and streetscapes. And then in addition to the 100-foot minimum in the D1 zoning district, there's a 200-foot maximum by right. Buildings above 200 feet are now required to go through the design review process, and they have to provide one of 5 public benefits. Here are the building elevations. They are not to scale, just as a heads up. So the front elevation along 200 East is approximately 83 feet in height. The northern building elevation, which runs along the mid-block walkway, average height is 79.5 feet. The western elevation along Edison Street is also 83 feet in height. And then the southern elevation, which is an interior side yard, has an average height of 78.5 feet. And so that is the request before you today. Sorry. The second request is to double the allowable length in the D1 zoning district of street-facing facades from 150 feet to approximately 307 feet, 4 inches. There are 3 primary building entrances and 4 utilitarian entrances that are leading to the electrical room and stairways for residents. After purchasing the property to the north, this project originally encompassed one of the lots, and the developer purchased the property directly north. There was a fire that razed the building, and so they had originally came before the Planning Commission in 2018 for additional building height in the zone, since the 100-foot was the maximum, and they received approval for 108 feet. And then once that property became available, they purchased it. They redesigned the building to be shorter and longer to encompass both properties. And the applicant states that the design meets the objectives of the D1 zoning district, which states that the standards are intended to achieve objectives for urban design, pedestrian amenities, and land use control. They believe that incorporating the northern parcel in the project redesign is beneficial for them as property owners, as well as the city, so that both properties can be developed. This integration does allow for the mid-block walkway to go through from 200 East to Edison Street, and if both properties weren't part of the development, it would dead end at the there's a building on Edison. It's currently Franklin Ave Cocktails and Kitchen, and it would dead end at the back of their building if the second property wasn't included in this proposal. 90% of the ground floor contains active uses as required in the D1 zoning district, and then in an effort to reduce the perceived length of the structure, the architect has enlarged the primary entrances, which I highlighted in the yellow dash line. So there's the leasing area and then the 2 restaurant spaces. The redesign has niches in the facade, enlarging canopies, and they changed the building materials from the brick to metal paneling at these 3 primary entrances. Here's some renderings of the building. You can see the Randy Apartments, which were approved as the Birdie Apartments by CW Urban on the right-hand side of the picture to the left. They're on the corner of 200 South and 200 East. And then 2 renderings of the project are on the right-hand side as well, showing the building's length. So for both the building length and the building height, I know the applicant will also touch on it. This is the context of the neighborhood. So the Randy Apartments directly north of them, they went through a plan development process in 2018 to ask for reduced building height in the D1 because since they were a corner building. So they were approved with a building height of approximately 85 feet, which is similar to the proposal in front of you today. Edison Street has smaller scale buildings that are more unlikely to redevelop based on lot size or the fact they've just been recently remodeled, as well as that's a similar situation on 200 South, which those properties abut the subject property. There's a lot with 30 feet of frontage. One of the lots was just redeveloped. One has a historic structure. So we're not likely to see a lot of major redevelopment along 200 South on that block face or along Edison Street. And then across 200 East, buildings range in size from mid-level, 2 stories, to the Worthington Apartments, which are approximately 335 feet in height once it's finished being built. They were built by right since the previous code allowed up to 375 feet. So the pictures on the left-hand side I took from Addison Street. You can see the Morton Apartments right in the middle, and those are the height of the proposed development. And then the Worthington Apartments, it's an interesting comparison because the height of the Worthington is just under the length of the 2 properties. So that's just kind of an interesting comparison that I noticed after I took the photos. And then on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see the buildings on 200 South. The picture on the left is the Randy Apartments, and then the historic buildings on 200 South, and the bottom photos are along Edison. The third request is to decrease the glass percentages on both the lower levels and the upper level facade. So the requirement, the new requirements in the D1 zone for ground floor glass is 60%, and the applicant is proposing 51% on both the levels 1 and 2. They have a double-story retail space, so we're kind of counting that as both of the ground floor spaces. And then the upper floor requirement, which is a new design standard that was adopted, is 50%, and the glass percentages range from levels 3 and 4 have 31%, levels 5 and 6 have 30, and level 7 has 25%. To make up for the reduction in glass, the applicant is proposing all durable materials on sides of the building on both lower and upper levels. And the durable materials are on all non-glass parts of the facade area. And that exceeds the zone's design standards that call for 70% durable on the ground floor and 50% durable materials on the upper floor. And then finally, the fourth request is to modify the upper level step backs, which is also a new design standard. So the requirement is that for buildings ranging between 78 and 104 feet or 68 stories, there has to be a minimum building step back of 10 feet at 25 feet above grade. And then 20% of the building can meet the street at the lot line with no step back. And that's in this zone specifically is because buildings have unlimited height with the design review process. So it's just to create a more pedestrian oriented building and to create a more comfortable streetscape. And so that really doesn't come into play with this structure because it is, it is lower than most of the or anticipated development, I guess you should say. The proposal has approximately 35% of the building facade meeting the lot line, and then at level 3, there's a significant step back that's 89 feet deep. There's 2 of them, and they create 2 podium level courtyards that'll be used as amenity space for the residents. So on the bottom photo, you can see the front facade of the building with the 2 step backs that separate the 3 building masses. There is a site plan showing the rooms created by the 2 step backs and then a view of the step back at ground level. The project was reviewed under the design standards in 21A 59. The project supports the D1 zone, which it generally supports the zone, which states that the D1 zone is the most urban and intense zone. Development is intended to be very intense, with high lot coverage and large buildings placed close together while being oriented towards the public realm, with a strong emphasis on safe and attractive streetscapes and preserving the urban nature of downtown. And then it is also the only zoning standard that has not been met is the height. The rest of the D1 zoning standards have been met. And then compliance with the design review standards. All of those have been generally addressed, and more information on that is in the staff report, was provided in the staff report, and then also reviewed under city's goals and policies. Some quick site photos. Here's photos of the site. I'm sorry, my photo is really bad, but everything was blocked off because it's all under construction. So bear with me. They're not great. Here's the properties along the eastern side of 200 East. The top left photo, you can see a Methodist church, a 2-story structure, the Morton Apartments. It's the same 5/2 construction. And then the Worthington Apartments on the corner of 200 East, 300 South. Photos of the properties along 200 South are on the upper, and properties along 300 South are the lower photos. On the corner of Edison Street and 300 South, the state is currently building a 2-story liquor store, and then the buildings between Edison and 200 East are older retail stores such as the Green Ant. They're currently one level, and Ivory Development owns that property, as well as Ken Sanders Bookstore, and it is expected to redevelop at some point. Here are the properties along Edison Street, top left. That actually is the subject property with the garage. Top right is the Franklin Ave Cocktails, and that was recently renovated and a 3rd story was added. And then on the bottom are the rest of the buildings along Edison, so they're small scale. Staff is recommending approval with the following conditions: that all signage, lighting, and site details are delegated for final review, and then a public access easement would be recorded to ensure the mid-block walkways are open to the public and privately maintained. And yep, staff is recommending approval with conditions. Please let me know if you have any questions, and the applicant is also here.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and have the applicant come forward.
I'm going to step back, so let me know if you need me, because there's a few of them.
State your names for the record and go ahead and give any presentation you've got.
Thank you. My name is Brock Loomis. I'm with J. Fisher Companies, the developer on the project, and this is Grant Kersey with Dwell Design Studio. He's our project architect. First, I just wanted to say thank you to Amanda. The amount of detail in that presentation is awesome, and also represents the amount of thought that she put into going through this design process with us, which was very valuable for us. As we went through this process and working on the new code, we wanted to make sure we hit the right balance of quality and scale for this area, while also providing attainable living. And I hope you'll see. We'll present here. Actually, Grant's going to run through a presentation that'll complement Amanda's presentation, but I hope you guys can see the amount of thought and effort that's gone into the ground floor experience for pedestrians with commercial. We loved the idea of putting in a mid-block connection here, and really wanted to dive headfirst into that and really do something special there that gives the community access, as well as comfortable access, a place that people want to gather and go. So I'll turn the time over to Grant, and then if you have any questions for us, myself, I'm here. Ownership is here in the audience as well, and happy to answer questions. Thank you.
To mirror a lot of what Brock said, and I swear we did not see Amanda's presentation before ours, so ours is going to mirror a lot of hers. But we worked tirelessly with Amanda on some of these design issues to make sure that we had a building that we were super proud of, that the city was super proud of, that met the intention of zoning, and that enhanced this area. I'm going to quickly go through a lot of these because you've already seen a lot of them in Amanda's presentation. Project site, I think everyone's familiar with that now. This is the first floor plan. We have the grab-and-go restaurants on the north side of the site with the restaurants that wrap around, leasing, and then a two-story parking garage. This is a typical unit plan. This is the third floor plan, so you can see the pool courtyard, the interior courtyard. We do have 201 units. And then we do have additional leasing and amenity space on this third level, yoga, fitness. And then what's not shown on this plan, but you see in the renderings, is we also do have a seventh floor amenity that not only enhances the building, but I think it actually adds a little bit more to the street views as well. Some more site photos that go along well with Amanda's. Neighborhood context, South Edison. I think everyone, or most people in Salt Lake, are aware of kind of the revitalization that South Edison is going through, the historical importance that Edison has as well. And so we wanted to design a building that referenced and did not ignore this. And we thought a building in size, like the one we're designing, is not going to overshadow too much of this area. The rest are going to be more renderings, maybe large scale. I'm happy to go back to any of these. They're numbered for views if anybody wants to refer back to these later on. Something I did want to point out that's not very clear in the rendering is that we are showing brick up to level 6. It just goes from a different color brick, 1 and 2, and then 3, 4, 5, 6. We thought that in the design of this building, we wanted to be really intentional about materiality. And we've spent so much time going back and forth with brick and paneling. We wanted to do something that is timeless in this area. I think a lot of time we go for a modern look, which lends itself to maybe more hardy panel type buildings. And then brick, I think, is something that is classier in a sense of maintaining a design that in 10 years you're not going to look back at this building and go, I wish we would have done things differently. Some more views along the building. You see the 7th floor amenity in this view pretty clearly. I did want to touch on a few of the things kind of close up that Amanda mentioned in hers, especially these step backs that we've intentionally done. All the building entries, I think code requires 3 feet. We thought 4 foot would even be better to enhance this area, just to give a little extra pedestrian experience in this area. To separate, as someone's walking down this, we wanted it to be an experience that wasn't just a flat building face. And so this is at every building face, 4 feet in. Not only are we setting the entries in 4 feet, but we're doing detailing. We're doing metal detailing there instead of brick to set them apart. We have a different canopy language. Also in these areas, which you can start to see in some of these areas, we've also changed some of the window language, which you can see in the overall elevations as well. This is something we went back and forth with Amanda, back and forth with the team to come up with something that we could all be proud of, as I said earlier. More renderings that kind of showed the mid-block walkway. We thought it was really important to not have too much shadow here. Obviously, we can't control what neighbors do, but we wanted to be intentional about what we did in this area, the ins and the outs, the grab-and-go restaurants to create something. We are showing a 21-foot mid-block connection, but obviously at some of these areas, it's actually going to get a little wider. And then some more mid-block walkways from our wonderful landscape as well. I'm just going to kind of go through some of these. Once again, they do have views at the bottom if anybody wants me to go back to them. I think Amanda touched on these building heights as well, so we have that exhibit. More building elevations that show kind of the heights of the building as well. And then site plan showing the mid-block walkway closer up, landscaping along the front. And then this is just divided to kind of show our that area. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the commission?
Yeah. So it sounds like one of the major stated reasons for like the building height reduction is that you feel like it's more in keeping with the neighborhood. That corner building being 300 feet tall, it seems like the neighborhood is changing to me, and there is multiple elements going on here. If your building was 150 feet, then it would function more of a step down into the neighborhood. So besides like the reason of neighborhood character of the height, what are the other reasons? Why have a height reduction here?
I would actually argue that the number one reason is probably not for the context. The number one reason is probably for housing attainability. We believe that there is a missing middle as you start to do high-rise. Building construction changes, costs change, and that's not necessarily effective to an owner or architect. It actually affects the renters and the people who are actually going to live in these buildings. As you go to a different type of construction, which as you go above 85 feet, you have to go to a different construction type. You actually have to change construction type to steel, concrete. And so that actually averages about $1 square foot more rent per building. And so it's not actually a cost of how much it takes to build it, but it's actually people being able to afford to live in this area. And that's what we're most interested in is, there is a housing crisis, but there's also a housing crisis of buildings being too expensive. And we're more interested in housing attainability more than, it fitting. I think fitting in is also very important. I think there's an urban canyon effect that can happen once, especially in this mid-block walkway along Edison, these areas that aren't going to change. So context, yes, but also housing attainability and making sure we don't have these kind of tall, narrow canyons.
So can you explain, I think I understand, maybe not everyone on the commission understands the whole issue of construction type and height?
Absolutely. And so the way this building is constructed right now is it's called a 5/2, which is what Amanda referenced earlier. It's 5 stories of wood construction over a podium, and then it's metal construction. And so the building types are 1A and then 3A. 3A construction, which is the highest projection of wood, has a maximum building height of 85 feet. You cannot go above that with wood construction. And so once you start to go higher, like you look at the building under construction across the street, it's all steel and concrete. And so that naturally has a large effect on construction, which then has a effect.
So over 85 feet, we start really getting into a different construction type, and therefore actually the 335 feet makes more sense almost immediately once you sort of goes from 85 feet to 300 feet pretty fast, right? Would that be a fair way to talk about it?
Once you go over the 85 feet and you hit that higher construction cost, you need to jump significantly higher to be able to make it make sense from the cost of construction standpoint.
Thank you.
That leads to what Grant was mentioning about that translates into higher rents.
And on that note, I also have a question about the decrease on the glass. I think it's going from 60 to 52 or something, depending on the floors. Why is that? I guess I'm not understanding. Is this rendering reflecting what that would look like if we decide to approve a decrease in glass materials? This is accurate? Okay. And then why is it?
Well, I mean, we really struggled with part of this because we feel like this is a very glass heavy, especially first 2 levels. I mean, we have literally tried to maximize everything we can glass, but due to, columns that have to hold up the podium, due to storefront sizes that come in, I mean, due to their different functions in this area, it's not all just one giant area. We have to have the separation to begin with.
Structural components.
Yeah, and then as you get up to residential, wood construction has a different tolerance of glass because you only can have such big openings in wood construction to begin with.
Just on that, So on the south face, the face of the building that faces south, it appears to me. Yeah, I'll wait till you get there.
This one.
Sorry, I'm gonna have to use your rendering, a different like a.
I think there was a rendering that showed also to
Just the
go back. Keep going.
Yeah, sorry to make you go all the way back.
It should actually been in Amanda's.
It may be, but it looks like there's like on the southeast corner, it looks like there's some like glass, and it looks like pretty nice on that corner. And then you go back about 15 feet, and then it becomes like just a blank wall. What's behind that wall? What's going on there?
Well, there's 2 levels of parking in that area, and we actually had more openings there, but there's a provision in the building code that talks about fire separation distance from the lot line. And once you get close to the lot line, so we're trying to increase density. Once you get close to the lot line, you only have a certain percentage of openings.
Okay.
So it all has to be solid, but the intention is not to just leave it a blank face.
Okay.
Yeah, and just to add to that, the intention there is to do more of an architectural board form concrete, so it looks nicer than just a concrete parking garage. We also see it as an opportunity for potential art, murals, something to go there. We also recognize that in the future, property to the south of us will get developed very close to that property, and that's part of the reason for the design the way it is.
I just wanted to say that I am very excited by the mid-block walkway, and especially by the activation for it that you've included in there, and would love to see more developers including that in projects.
Especially the bikes upside down. hanging in front.
Yeah, the walkway is perfect ground floor use. I like the idea. You've already got the idea of a coffee shop and a restaurant, and you've kind of established what kinds of use. Not that it has to stay in those uses, but there's some. I'm liking it.
We appreciate that. We're just as excited about it. We see it as a big opportunity to do something special there. I'm glad you like it.
Since we're discussing that at the moment, I just want to add in, I don't have the specifics of what your ground floor space is, but we have, I don't know how many, I want to say 10 or a dozen buildings with ground floor activation that stand empty and have been empty for years, that there's literally nothing in. It's empty space in front of which you end up with difficulty with drug use or criminal activity. And so while I think the concept of mid-block walkways and activation on ground space sounds appealing, I feel like we've been seriously unsuccessful at actually accomplishing that to this point.
Well, let's go ahead and open up public comment. I didn't receive any cards, but if anyone would like to give comment, go ahead and approach the microphone. I don't see anyone, so any emails received? We'll go ahead and close the public comment and bring it back to the commission for discussion and a motion.
Mr. Chair, I think I have to acknowledge Commissioner Gale's comment, because I think that she's absolutely right, that there's so much stuff that is sort of, let's call it in progress rather than vacant forever. But and that's one of the reasons why we have established a minimum height, so that we can actually see more density downtown, like the building across the street that's 335 feet tall. I know there is a propensity to stay within the 4/2 or 5/2 building type, because that's a lot less, somewhat less expensive to build, certainly less expensive to build than going into steel and concrete construction. But I think the intention of the minimum 100 feet was exactly that, was to get people away from that building typology and move into a higher density, so that we would have a downtown that was much denser than it is now. So just having said that, I understand that this building sort of was more or less designed before some of these changes were made. But I would like to voice that as an issue going forward in downtown.
And
Chair
just to, like,
Christensen,
sorry, go for it.
Chair Christensen, may I go ahead? I want to also reiterate what Commissioner Scheer is saying. And I think this change in this district was not made lightly. I think the people making this change understood that when you get above 85 feet in a building, it's going to cost more to develop and to build. I may have too simple of a mind, but the cost of developing and building a building and selling it to whoever will manage it is separate from rent markets. And I think the purpose of having this zone is specifically to encourage taller buildings with greater density. And moving forward, I don't know how we would distinguish this application from future applications that are sure to come in and ask for a reduced building height in a zone that specifically was designed to encourage taller buildings. And so I think if we set this as a precedent, what are we going to do with the next 3 or 4 or 5 applications that come down the road? How are we going to distinguish that? We can't just say, well, they already had their building designed before the zoning was in place. I mean, in that case, then people will just start designing what they want and insist that they should be able to have it because they designed it before the zoning was in place. So I think, approving that change in the height requirement, I just think, to me, it seems inappropriate given the work done to change the zoning in this district. And I think relying on the neighborhood character as, I don't remember who pointed that out. Is that you? Yeah. As was pointed out earlier, seems also maybe not inappropriate, but obviously with this change, part of the purpose of that is for the city to encourage different development in this increasingly dense downtown area. And for that reason, I just can't find myself on the side of approving.
Can I ask one more question of the developers? In your statement, I don't know where it is up for you, but it's on page 22 for us, section D in your comments. You talk about how you had a two-building development kind of in the works for a few months, and then that got scrapped for some of the reasons that you've kind of shown. One of the major reasons was because of the mid-block walkway. As far as I see, there is a large parking lot behind that building. I mean, behind where you could cut the block there, have 2 buildings that are 300 feet tall within the zoning requirements, and still have a mid-block walkway mid-block instead of at the end. So why was that changed?
Yeah, great question. So this has been a bit of a process. We've owned this property since, I think, 2017, so it's been about 6 years. We went through multiple iterations of designing a building here. When we first started, we did not, Amanda mentioned, we did not own the property along the north side, which connected us to Edison Street. We designed a project that was 12 stories, and it wasn't that we didn't like the mid-block, like the idea of doing the mid-block. It was that the mid-block dead-ended at Franklin Ave Restaurant. It would just end at that building that we knew Ben Loeb was in the middle of putting a significant amount of investment into. So from our view, we were putting in a mid-block connection that would dead end for the foreseeable future. That could change at some point in the future, but with our neighbor putting a lot of money into that development at that time, or that building at that time, it looked like we were putting in a mid-block connection to nowhere. So we had the opportunity to purchase the land to the north. The Chancellor Building is what is referred to, which gave us that connection to Edison Street. We love Edison Street. We saw the opportunity, scrapped the plan for that reason, and said, let's start over and do something better. Let's get rid of our mid-block that dead ends. Let's put a mid-block that connects between the two. and really do something bigger and better. And it resulted in things that, for the code today, they're a little bit contradictory, right? But going through, just so you guys know the history of how we got to that point. Now that your question about doing a mid-block in the middle and going to the state's parking lot, we also went through that same process. So over the last 6 years, we've gotten to know DFCM and the state really well through this process. As we were going through the process of designing this project, the state was going through, I'm sure some of you are aware, the process of designing their mega parking tower structure. They had the plan to build a large parking structure with their liquor store on that entire parking lot. So, and that was happening at the same time that we were looking at this potential for, you know, do we split this? Do we pick up this property to the north? Because of that, we didn't see the mid-block going through the state's property as a viable option. So we looked back to the connection on the north side and getting through to Edison. And in conversations with the state, regardless of the parking structure, they were not in any position from our conversations with them to want to participate in creating a mid-block connection between their, you know, from our property to Edison through their property. So for us, the only viable option seemed to be on that north side. Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it does.
Can I maybe address one other concern?
Go ahead.
On the concern about the ground floor retail and the commercial and the, you know, the potential for drug use and we don't want to create an area that promotes that. We share the concern. I mean, we're not a developer that comes in, and we're not a merchant builder. We come in, we develop, we build, we own. I think this will be our sixth building in Salt Lake City that we've built and own and maintain and manage. With this will be 6, and we have 2 more coming right behind this one as well. We're big believers in Salt Lake City. We're big investors in Salt Lake City. We see the issues that we have with homelessness and crime and the ground floor retail. So I think we can feel that as much as anybody. It worries us. It's something we talk about in our meetings in our office as we discuss these projects every day. It's something that we talk about. I do believe we'd be short-sighted to not push forward with providing the space for those retail activities, whether they work today or not. Monetarily, we're the ones taking that risk on right now, hoping that pays off in the future, that we create that space, that it does pay off. It does take constant on-site management. It takes the right design. You'll notice that we pushed our mid-block walkway up over 20 feet. That was the reason for that, is we tried to get as much space as we could to, you know, create a well-lit, well-designed area. We know we'll have to be constantly maintaining that area and keeping it up for our own assets to be viable. And then one other thing I would add, we want the density downtown too. We see the value of that. We also see the value of people living where they can visually connect with the ground floor. As soon as you get over that 7 stories, and those buildings have their place. They absolutely have their place. But as soon as you get over that height, those people are visually disconnected from what's going on the ground floor, down on the street level. I like the idea of creating something where if I'm standing on the ground floor, I can see up and see balconies and see people, and those people can see down and see the same. So there's a place for all of it. I do think that we share the same concerns, though, and we're hoping to address them. So, thank you.
Yeah, I actually disagree with my colleagues. I think that the reduction of the building height is just like, 22 feet? I think that, you know, still you're providing the allowable density that is under this zone, and land use, this is what this body is here to, like, help decide, you know, between gray areas, and I think this is one of those. This type of topology makes sense. I live in this district, and I actually passed through this to come here on my scooter, and I just think, like, this type of conversations about different types of housing for rental market is important. Not everyone wants to live in a skyscraper. Not everyone wants to, you know, have that. And again, it's gonna still provide the much housing we need, and also it's gonna be attainable for those who rent. And at the same time, you know, it's kind of like meeting that gap of the missing middle typologies that kind of helps break down, you know, those massive buildings. I don't think this specific application doesn't comply because of those 22 feet that we're reducing if we were to approve it. And then on the other side of things is the reduction of the glass. I think that they have made an argument about the why, and they are also compromised with the type of durable materials that they're going to use around the whole project. So on those, I don't have any worries. I just think that we need to just think about the people who will live here and the type of environment that they want to participate in. And I think that a very well activated, area that would connect, these massive long distance blocks that are unwalkable, this will provide kind of like a easier, path for people pushing their strollers, walking, biking, scooting, like myself, around downtown. And I just think this is a great kind of like solution to a huge gap that we are missing currently.
Sorry, everyone, to keep this going for so long. I would just like to know, just because I'm not particularly knowledgeable about rent prices with that like increase of height, it seems like if we're looking for units, then the zoning says you can go up to 200. So it's not just about 20 something feet. It's about you can go up to 200 in zoning. So then that is another like 4 or 5 stories. If we have 5 stories of apartments, there's 200 and something units. We go up 5 more stories. We have 400. What was that? Oh, well, that's a lot more. So I guess somebody tell me about the cost of housing in that increase.
I think the cost of housing is not really under the purview of the Planning Commission. The cost of a building is not under the purview. What we are charged with evaluating here, in my view, is whether or not this project complies with the plan for Salt Lake City and the downtown plan in specific, and particularly the changes that have been made in the last several years to try to intensify downtown. So at this point in time, we don't, it's not, in my opinion, a point of consideration. Is what, because we're not actually charged with, say, oh, if it's affordable or yet. That's something that might be coming in the future in terms of the Planning Commission's purview, but right now that's not on the table.
I agree with Commissioner Shears. Outside of our purview, what I was referring with 100 feet is that is the minimum building heights, and then what they're asking is 78, which is 22. I was just making that. I don't like to play semantics, but I just want to clarify that just in case.
Certainly, yeah. Sorry about that.
I don't know, I might be beating a dead horse, but I'm just going to reiterate, given that this is a minimum building height, I think making a decision to approve something below that building height will encourage others to make similar applications. And I think if we are to approve this, we need to find some very specific reasons about why, so that we establish a precedent about why we are approving this. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult, I think, to distinguish other applications that will certainly come before us in the same district where the zone was specifically changed to establish this minimum building height, and it will be very hard to make decisions that are solid rather than sort of arbitrary and capricious moving forward. So I just want to reiterate, we need to think about that in this case too. We need to, if we decide to approve it, there need to be some very specific reasons about why.
So according to Attachment E, our design review standards, there are a lot of parts to the intent of this particular area. Density and intense use is one of those stated components, but it also goes on to talk about a vibrant downtown with enhancing property values, improving design quality to the areas, creating unique downtown centers that foster different things like arts, entertainment, office, retail, etc. So there are many aspects to the intent within this design review that we can consider beyond just one specific part of density or intense number of units in the building. So I don't know that we're establishing any horrible precedent, and as we look at what our standards actually say, I think we can look at this in multiple ways. And for me personally, one of the things that I always focus on and that I always have trouble with is building length. So when it goes over 200 feet, it's like a red flag for me. And there have only been a handful of designs that I think meet the intent of why we limit those, and this is one of them. You've done a very good job of breaking it up in a way for the pedestrian to not feel like this is going to go on forever. And so the mid-block walkway being a stated goal in the downtown master plans is also part of that activation and part of trying to make unique spaces. And so regardless of the building height, my focus has been looking at the design review standards of the type of experience and the type of things we want to promote in addition to the density. And I think this design has actually done a really good job of it. Would I like to see it be 100 feet? Sure. Am I terribly bothered by it being 2 stories lower than that? Based on what we're getting, on the other hand, and how you've designed it and how you've activated uses and how you've thoughtfully put in a lot of those things that I believe promote those other components of the design review standards, I'm really comfortable with this. I think we're getting enough of all of those other things to offset that. If this were a building that we typically see come before us, I may not feel that way. I may feel like we're not getting enough of a benefit. So that's where I stand, and I think in terms of the design review standards, especially the intent that is written out in Section A in Attachment E, I feel like you meet those enough that I feel really comfortable with supporting this.
I really appreciate what you said about the steps we've taken, and I am honestly proud of the way this building looks for Salt Lake and for this area. In regards to design intent and design review, I think that, I have truly devoted my life's work as an architect to livable cities. And I think part of a livable city plays part of a design review. You're activating office, you're activating retail, restaurants, park spaces, but none of that's possible if you don't look at a livable component of a downtown area. And I think what you're saying is, it's up to all of you obviously to discuss precedents and what comes before this, but I think the intent of this design review and what we've presented is something that works for this area. It's livable, that provides. We're not talking about budget necessarily, because that's not even my care as an architect, is to discuss budget or numbers. But a building that is livable with people and people actually coming to this space is important to me. So.
Well, I'm rarely complimentary of design, so you should probably take that as a big compliment. It doesn't happen often.
I'm going to log it away from my journal, so I appreciate that.
One more kind of element. I honestly have not made my mind up, so I'm trying to suss it out. My question really is, like, with the new regulations, we have built in the fact that we have to have mid-block walkways. So, like, this is the first, and it looks great. Like, this is like, it looks like really active ground use. It looks really wonderful, and I love that. But like, this is what we should expect going from here on out with the new regulation changes. So, although I am a little bit like in awe of the beauty of what it is, I'm still questioning, like, does that, is that enough? And I don't know.
So, forgive me, I have already forgotten your last name.
It's Krasik, and you can always butcher it.
Commissioner
It's fine.
Krasik. Requiring mid-block walkways is not necessarily tied to this new vision of this particular zone. Mid-block walkways have been part of the downtown master plans for however long those have been, decades around, and has identified those as, when new developments come before, mid-block walkways, if it falls within that zone, have been part of them. So over the years, we're getting mid-block walkways where the downtown master plans are calling for them, but they're not all the same. So not every mid-block walkway is functioning in a way that is extremely vibrant or encouraging. They try to make them nice looking and functional, but they're not necessarily all vibrant. So it's not necessarily a new concept. I think the focus for these standards in terms of a mid-block walkway are trying to make them more vibrant, make them more interactive, so they're not just like a place where people are going to be, that there's something drawing them through in that way. And so I think that's what we're trying to accomplish with these new standards. And we've seen plenty of mid-block walkways that aren't achieving that. And so I think this one is this one seems to have a lot of the elements that are brought out in this particular new design standards for me that make this a much more, we've seen mid-block walkways that are like, 8 feet wide. And they meet it, and what can you do about it? This one has definitely exceeded a lot of what we've seen in the past.
Commissioner Christensen, may I just need some clarification, perhaps from our planning director, manager, and maybe legal counsel. When we vote on this, if we were to vote to approve it, are we approving and locking the applicant into the exact renderings, plans, floor plans, and everything presented in this? Or are we only approving these 4 changes in the requirements for the zone, meaning if we approve it, can they change those plans so long as they still comply with the rest of the zoning requirements and these exceptions to the zoning requirements?
Hang on, I want to make sure I'm getting the right application types here. Get up there. Yeah, so when something's going through design review, you are approving the design.
So nothing in the design can be changed without coming back before us?
Hang on.
Sorry.
That's fine. So the code allows for some minor modifications, and those are very narrowly scoped. So, for example, you can't change building materials, but you could use the same material in different ways, types of things, or different textures, things like that. But anything else is considered a major modification and has to come back to the Planning Commission for review.
So the building footprint, all of those
Yes.
things are actually considered part of the approval of this, correct?
Yeah, and that's why you see things come back through design review, because they are proposing some changes to that. And to give you some examples, I'm trying to think of the most recent one that came back, but I can't off the top of my head. But some of the built examples, even the Astra Tower came back, and that was simply for the dimensions of the windows.
Yeah, okay.
So.
One thing in that vein then is, if it is locking it in, I think that leasing offices are excluded from the active uses. I went through a similar process where
They're allowed up to a certain percentage of the overall length. So the active use requirement is a percentage of the ground floor.
Yeah.
And then anything, I can't remember off the top of my head what it is here. I think it might be 80%. 90, So it's 90%. So that other 10% of the building facade can include other types of uses.
Yeah, yeah. I'm saying that it says it's 90%, and that's including the leasing office, which is maybe a third of it or so. But I think that leasing offices don't qualify as an active use. That's what I've heard before.
Oh. You need to be in microphone.
So with the downtown building heights ordinance is quite large. It is a very large task. There are a few things that we are going to go back and readdress, look at, see how things are working. I think the leasing office, Nick and I were discussing this a while ago. We need to clarify that as a part of the definition. Is it active use or is it not?
Yeah, I don't think it's a deal breaker one way or the other,
Right.
because it's easy enough to have that space be something else and do
Yeah.
a leasing office elsewhere. I just, if this is locking in the design and that's blocked out in the floor plan, I just wanted to bring that up as
Yeah,
full issue, so.
what the active use is defined as something that draws customers in. In the past, we've seen mail rooms, right? We've seen lobbies. Those are not active uses anymore. And in the definition, we did call out some specific uses that are no longer considered active because they were what was on the street-facing building facade. The leasing office is something that we need to review moving forward.
Okay.
And then I just had one more clarification. The maximum height in the zone is not 200. That's the maximum by right. The height is unlimited. When you hit 200 feet, you go through the design review and you have to provide one of 5 public benefits. That can be a mid-block walkway. That can be some preservation, affordable housing, open space, or an additional active uses on the ground floor. So you can do one of 5 things, and that is just the trade-off between the additional density, and a public benefit. So
Okay,
unlimited.
thank you. Appreciate it.
So one other thing I'd like to point out about this particular rendering that we're looking at on the screen right now, too, is that it's in the southern hemisphere. The sun is coming from the north. And so actually the nice sunny view on the building is not going to be there. It's going to be a big shadow. And so so the fact that we're sort of buying into this is a really nice, activated, sunny spot is something we need to, and it's not unusual for architects to do this, to sort of change the orientation of the world. But it's not unacceptable. It's not a bad thing. It's just something that I wanted to point out.
So to summarize, I am disappointed that it's not meeting the 100-foot minimum height, but I'm willing to overlook that for the other benefits. And with that, I'm
Mr.
looking
Chair,
for a
I'm willing
motion.
to make a motion. I can't see up close with my glasses, but I can't see far away without them. So it's tough age I'm in here. Based on the information presented and discussion, I move that the Commission approve this design review application as recommended by staff, given that it meets the intent of this design review standard, Section A, specifically calling out urban design, enhancing opportunities, enhancing property values, and creating a unique downtown center space.
We need a second.
No? I put my glasses back on. Nope. Find another motion.
Okay, we can do an alternative motion then.
Mr. Chair, I move that the Commission deny this design review application because evidence has not been presented that demonstrates the proposal complies with the following standards. 21A 59.050 Part A which is the intent of the downtown district to provide bulk, efficient use of space, high urban density, and very intensiveness, and also because it is also on a public investment that is planned called the Green Loop, where I believe that we should have a lot of intensity, but that's not part of the motion. Sorry, it was just a little added.
I second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Scheer and a second from Commissioner Gale. Any discussion to the motion? We'll go ahead and take a vote. Commissioner Santos Rivera,
Yes.
Commissioner Barry,
No.
Commissioner Gale,
Yes.
Commissioner Kratzik.
Can you come back to me?
Okay. Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Scheer,
Yes.
Commissioner Tuttle,
Yes.
Commissioner Kratzik,
Yes.
and the chair will vote no. That gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 yeses and 2 no votes. And the motion to deny passes. Let's take a 5-minute break and come back at 7:24. just a moment. We'll get started here with our final item on the regular agenda. Zoning map amendment at approximately 2760, 2828 and 2800 North, 2200 West. The case numbers PLN PCM 2022-00699, PLN PCM 2022-00700, and PLN PCM 2022-00701. And Diana Martinez is our planner.
Hi, welcome new commissioners. Do you want the applicants to sit up here now, or do you want to wait?
You can go ahead and do your presentation.
Okay, so just for the new commissioners, and because many of you weren't here when this first came to you, it is three planning numbers, application numbers, but they are not different applications. So it is just, it represents each parcel. There's three parcels. So just want to clear that. So the project request is a zoning map amendment. It is the applicant is requesting a zone change from AG2, which is agricultural, to M1, which is light industrial, for three parcels. OCC Industrial is under contract on the two western parcels. The Larkin family owns the eastern parcel, which is that triangular piece. The parcels total approximately 14.33 acres. At this time, the possible future development is possibly warehouses, but no development plans have been submitted to the city at this time and are not required for this application. So only a few of you, I think, will remember that this application came before the Planning Commission January 11th of this year. The commission tabled the application until the proposed North Point Small Area Plan, which this is part of, was adopted and approved by the City Council. That plan was approved and adopted on November 14th of this year by the City Council. The adopted plan's vision overview was adopted with an annexation and zoning amendment policy that states any proposed zoning map amendment in the transitional area, which this is in, will be subject to a development agreement aimed at realizing the plan's vision and design standards until the area's zoning regulations are adopted, which have not been. As we recommended in January, staff is recommending approval of this. We have added a condition of approval that the property owners for each parcel must enter into a development agreement with Salt Lake City. The development agreement will note the development intent of the North Point Small Area Plan, and the applicant shall comply with that agreement. Just quickly to show you the adjacent uses to this property. So these are the three, I don't know what you're looking at, but these are the three parcels here. Like I was saying, the two on the leftmost part of the map are the ones that are under contract by OCC. The triangular one is owned by the Larkin family, but OCC is representing them tonight. The property to the north of the subject properties is agriculturally zoned. That is within Salt Lake County's jurisdiction. That's up here. To the west, directly west, is warehouse distribution. It's zoned BP, or business park zoning. To the south, again, is residential agricultural zoning, and that is in Salt Lake County jurisdiction. And then to the east, on the right side of the map, is I-215 freeway and Legacy Freeway. And I just wanted to point out, for the new commissioners that don't know, so this area from here So this is the city line to here, and within those, the 215 and 2200 West, that's approximately 68 acres of AG2. These are the three properties outlined in red. Again, the two western ones are OCC, the triangular piece is Larkin. The existing conditions haven't changed since it came to you in January. The bottom, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but this bottom property is weeds. It's an open field, nothing's being farmed on it. The middle piece, or the bigger piece, has had some trucks that were parked on it. I don't know that anything is going on that. The last time I was out there, nothing was changed. And then again, that triangular piece is scrapped of any vegetation, but nothing is happening on that. These are pictures looking at that leftmost parcel. That's the bigger parcel. There's a long drive that goes down to the property. And then on the right is that open field that I was talking about that has weeds and is not farmed. So these are pictures I took and that were in your staff report for the January 11th meeting. The one on the left is looking due west from the subject properties, and the one on the bottom is looking straight down 2200. The subject property is on the right. This was taken in December of 22. This is what it looks like now. This is current development along 2200 West. This was 3 weeks ago, I believe. The picture on the top is where that field was. This is direct west of the current subject properties that we're talking about. And again, the picture in the bottom is looking down 2200 West, and the subject properties are to the right. These are a couple of other pictures showing you the development that has occurred on 2200 West. And again, staff is recommending approval of this with that added condition that the applicants and owners of each parcel will complete and comply with a development agreement. The applicants are here. They do have a presentation. I want to go into that.
Let's go ahead and have the applicants come forward. And remember to state your names for the record.
Megan O'Brien with OCC Industrial.
I'm Melanie Clark with Foley and Lardner. I'm legal.
And Will Channel with OCC Industrial.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for your time this evening. As I said, my name is Megan O'Brien. I am up here on behalf of OCC Industrial, the applicant, and with me tonight is James Carlin and Will Channel, my two business partners, Melanie, our land use attorney, and Gary, one of our landowners. We are here today to request a rezone from Ag 2 to M1 for the three parcels located at 2760, 2828, and 2800 North, 2200 West. The three parcels that we are here to request a rezone for total 14.33 acres. OCC currently has the two parcels shown in green under contract for purchase. Of the 12 acres we have under contract, 8.06 acres is currently being utilized by a commercial landscaping company, and the other 4.06 acres is vacant land. Our plan for the parcel shown in green is to consolidate the two lots and develop a Class A light industrial flex building that will be in accordance with the North Point Small Area Plan that was recently adopted. The triangular parcel here shown in red is owned by Jim and Kathy Larkin, and they will retain ownership of the parcel. They are currently using the land for storage for the landscaping business, and they have no development plans at this time. They have asked us to represent them in this rezone request, as they believe light industrial to be the highest and best use for the land. In my presentation today, I'm going to touch briefly on two things. One, how this rezone request is consistent with the recently adopted North Point Small Area Plan, and two, the existing and future uses of the land surrounding the subject properties. So the three parcels we seek to rezone are all located within District 1 of Salt Lake City. More specifically, they're located within the North Point Small Area. All three parcels are identified in the recently adopted North Point Small Area as transitional future land use. Transitional in the plan is defined as light industrial development that will be required to incorporate new design standards to mitigate development impacts on neighboring parcels. We are currently working with our city planner, Diana, as well as the planner who led the North Point Small Area Plan update, Christina Gilmore, and the city attorney on finalizing a development agreement that will incorporate the design standards outlined in the North Point Small Area Plan. In addition, we have had numerous conversations with several of the city council members, including the District 1 council member, Petro. We understand the sensitivity of development in this area and the trauma the existing landowners are going through. We acknowledge that we will work hard to enter into a development agreement with the council members that will not only honor the landowners who want to leave this area as a result of the transition, but also those that want to stay. So the three parcels we're requesting for our rezone are shown on this map in the tan brown box with the star. The property immediately to the west is outlined here in orange. It's a 357-acre industrial park. There is currently 1.5 million square feet under construction, as represented by the black rectangles. Shown here is the planned full build-out, which will be a big box industrial park totaling 6 million square feet. The property immediately to the north is shown here in purple. It's 126 acres, and while it is currently zoned ag, it is in the North Point Small Area Plan also as a transitional zone, and the current property owner is under contract to sell the land to an industrial development company. To the east is Interstate 215, and immediately to the south, the parcels you see here highlighted in the green box currently are zoned Ag 2 and are also identified in the North Point Small Area Plan Future Vision Map as transitional light industrial. And then even further to the south, there are 5 large warehouses that have been constructed, totaling 1.35 million square feet, as you can see represented here by the black rectangles south of the property. And then there is the one industrial building shown in navy that is planned industrial development. The punchline here on this slide is that the North Point Small Area is 1,300 acres, and all of the developable land within this area is either already permits industrial use or is land identified in the recently adopted North Point Small Area Plan as future industrial. Next slide. Now I'm going to pass it off to Gary.
I think your mic might be off. Yeah, now it's on.
There we go. Now I'll kind of blow you away. So I support the rezone of my property. And we purchased this property a couple years ago with ideas of building our dream home. And since then, things have changed. I used to look out what would have been my front door and had a beautiful sunset. And now I've got a massive 1 million square foot building just across the street. So, and because of that, there's also been a lot of vehicle traffic, big wheelers, 18-wheelers that are coming up and down the street. And overall, it's definitely changed from the feel that we had and the feel that we wanted. And in addition, there's another 500,000 square foot building that's going just north. And it's just not what we're looking for. And I only anticipate that there'll be probably more construction with the infrastructure, and when all those buildings are in, it's probably just going to be nonstop traffic anyway. So I've decided to sell my property. And then, furthermore, it's just kind of what, we kind of need to do, I think, my wife and I at this point. We just decided we're just going to find a new dream, and hopefully by getting this rezoned, we can have the assets to do that. And I'd appreciate if you guys were to vote along those lines. Thank you.
Thank you for your time and consideration, commissioners. We appreciate it, and we ask that you please provide a positive recommendation to City Council for our rezone request. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission?
Who
Chair.
owns?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Carlos.
No, go ahead, Diana. I'm so sorry. I didn't see
I just wanted to add that at the last meeting in January, the public hearing was closed. And I think because we have new information with the plan being adopted now at this point, that we might want to open it in case there's anyone that wants to speak.
So, can you please help me clarify? Who owns the Larkin parcel, Larkin's property on the north right?
The triangular parcel is owned by Jim and Kathy Larkin, and they run the commercial landscaping business I referred to. They are not here this evening.
I'll jump in. They have also given us permission to work with the city on a developer agreement for that triangular parcel as well.
Thank you. Diana, can you help me understand that parcel and like the stakeholder engagement? Like, are they on board with this plan to rezone that parcel on the top right corner?
Yes, all three parcels are in agreement, and all three parcels are willing to do a development agreement.
Perfect. I just wanted to
Yes.
clarify that. Thank you.
Yes.
Seeing no other questions, let's go ahead and open the public hearing. Is there anyone from the public who would like to give comment? Go ahead and approach the podium. State your name for the record, and you'll have 2 minutes.
My name's Brad Auger. I own the property just south of the Larkin property, and I'm totally in favor of the rezoning. This land out there is really what it's made for. It's best use, and so I'm just an advocate to this, and we hope we can get it passed. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to give public comment? Go ahead and step up to the microphone and state your name, and you'll have 2 minutes.
Whole 2 minutes, I'd more than I get with my kids. This is awesome. I've been working with Gary and the Larkins and OCC. They've been wonderful to work with, and this seems to be in great harmony with the North Bay Area Point plan, and I think that is a great way to do this, and is within what the city wants to do and is trying to do, and I'm in favor of that. And I say it's Chris Jenkins, and that's all I have to say. I have a whole 2 minutes. It's so great. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else wishing to give public comment? Seeing no one else, have we received any emails? We'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for questions.
Mr. Chair, I'm ready to make a motion. Based on the information presented and discussed, I move that the commission forward a positive recommendation to adopt this zoning map amendment to the City Council with the following condition: that the property owners of each parcel must enter into a development agreement with Salt Lake City. The development agreement will note the development intent of the North Point Small Area Plan, and the applicant shall comply with the agreement.
I second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Scheer and a second from Commissioner Santos Rivera. Any discussion to the motion? We'll go ahead and take a vote. Commissioner Kratzik.
Yes.
Commissioner Scott.
Yes.
Commissioner Gale.
I am going to abstain, given I have a personal friendship with one of the representatives of applicant and want to avoid appearance of impropriety.
Thank you. Commissioner Tuttle.
Yes.
Commissioner Barry.
Yes.
Commissioner Shear.
Yes.
Commissioner Santos Rivera.
Yes.
And the chair will vote no. That motion passes with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 yeses, 1 no, and 1 abstention. And that moves on to the City Council for further action. Thank you.
Thank you.
We will go ahead and move on to our other business section of our agenda. Our one item of business is to elect a vice chair. And yes, so if we have anyone who would like to volunteer themselves or possibly volunteer someone else on the commission.
I would like to, Mr. Chair, I would like to nominate Commissioner Santos Rivera.
I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion to nominate Commissioner Santos Rivera from Commissioner Shear and a second from Commissioner Barry. Any discussion to the motion? We'll go ahead and take a vote. Commissioner Santos Rivera.
I can't believe it. Yes, thank you. I'm honored. Thank you.
Commissioner Shear.
Yes.
Commissioner Barry.
Yes.
Commissioner Tuttle.
Yes.
Commissioner Gale.
Yes.
Commissioner Scott.
Yes.
Commissioner Kratzik.
Yes.
And the chair will also vote yes. That passes unanimously. Welcome to being our new chair, Commissioner Santos Rivera. Staff will reach out to you to give you the necessary training. And seeing nothing else on our agenda, we'll go ahead and adjourn.
Thank you, everybody. And I just wanted to say happy holidays. This is the last meeting of the year, so we'll see everybody in
Yes,
January.
happy holidays, Merry Christmas,
Thank
Happy
you.
Hanukkah.